If I were to talk about what a coach can do to support his team, I'd again have to angle it towards what's done in conventional sports and move on from there because that is the genesis of teamwork, team building, and what a coach can actually contribute, right? I mean, mainly, as you know, a coach should just be the central force, but as far as I'm concerned, the central force behind ensuring his team is making the most successful play possible. And that's not a general thing. It could be a very specific thing. The issue is that people think making the most successful play possible applies to all players. And in reality, the most successful play possible for Nico isn't the same as the most successful play possible for Smits, for example, in the same circumstance or position. And that's really the genesis of why roles even exist in CSGO. I think I've talked about before how I view the game of CSGO like I view the game of chess, and different players have different strengths and attributes, and they're like, maybe the difference between a rook and a bishop. So in order to get what you want out of that piece, you have to use your rooks like rooks and you have to use your bishops like bishops, right? Uh, Playing and utilizing player strengths and trying to shy away from their weaknesses is a integral part of being an IGL, and it's also an integral part of being a coach. However, a coach can develop a player. So you could turn your bishops into queens as far as coaching is concerned if you follow the analogy or the metaphor that I'm using. But the total vision of a coach, in my estimation, isn't just somebody who's calling strategies. Even in basketball, they aren't. Even in soccer, a manager isn't. Even it's all a coach or a manager's job in these sports is all about preparation. You're giving your players the tools to succeed, and your leaders the tools to succeed. So once they are on the pitch, once they are on the field, once they are in the server, they can make the decisions that are the ones that will lead you to winning the game, the EV plus, the positive expected value decisions, right? Because the total vision of a coach has to be making sure the team is working together, one vision, un vision. Because in general, teamwork will always trump individual play as long as everything else is equal, right? So a coach has to look at the whole mechanism of a team and constantly ask, okay, is this the most EV plus, easy positive play, positive expected value play that we're making? Or are we giving ourselves the highest likelihood of succeeding with what we have by doing what we are doing, right? So really, and I've talked about this in another video, which I'll link here. If a coach had positional coaches, and I talked to Mo about this, then CSGO will get to a point where coaching becomes very expanded, where there is a coach for the aggressive riflers, a coach for the support rifles, a coach for the oppers, for the passive rifler. But until then, really a singular coach has to act as both quality control, meaning making sure each one of these players and each one of their roles is doing it correctly, doing it to their best ability, growing as a player within the confines of these roles, and making sure these players are maximizing their ability to achieve the team objective as well. So each kind of a player will have a certain objective in either opening up rounds, closing them out on T side, and on CT side, either holding an angle or preparing to support their teammate and holding a certain area, being able to rotate well. On some maps, players are responsible for choke points and tasked with supporting their teammates who are responsible for completely different choke points, right? A coach's job, in my estimation, is to make sure there is no problem with how they're executing this. Again, quality control. Coaches have to be able to see problems when they're happening, write them down, then go back, send them to their players later, or make decisions, take pauses, and make fixes on the fly. In my view, this is the most effective method of improving players. The one where you see problems, you write them down, you adjust them later. By writing down the errors they see, it's not getting lost in the action, it's getting written down to a notepad. And the player is more, in my view, receptive to it because they're not receiving the information during a drill or practice or in front of everyone in the server. They're getting written notes later on that they can read over and then understand and apply to their game. So currently, coaches are tasked with both microanalysis and the whole macro of players, right, and what these players are doing, and the whole macro analysis for how a team is working as a system, as a unit, the team economy, ensuring that they're working together in a way that gives them the best chance of success possible. Ultimately, in my view, if a team isn't working like a team, the coach has failed in one of the biggest of ways. If players aren't improving and growing, then the coach has failed in one of the biggest ways. Because a coach must ensure teamwork first and foremost, and then go on to help individual players improve on less than successful tendencies, grow. If a player can have access to notes to tell him, look, you're doing blank in blank situation, and I think it would be, X and Y situation. I think it would be more successful for the team if you instead do Z or Z, then they can think on that, reflect on that, grow, actually change their tendencies, their desires, their first impulses as players. Because ultimately in the server, players are going to do what they want when it comes down to the game. It's really their careers that are on the line and their success or failure. I will say, though, that there is a whole OGL movement, right? An outside of the game leader movement, which I started talking about back in like June or July. I'll put that video up here, where coaches are expected to also be coordinators, basically, or in-game leaders, but outside of the game. So they're expected to be like tacticians calling strategies. If this is the case, then the coach's duties get expanded, right, into decision-making for the entire team. In actual sports teams, there is an offensive coordinator and a defensive coordinator, or an offensive coach and a defensive coach, even in basketball. In CS, it would be like if a team had Devil Walk calling CT sides and Taz calling T sides, both from outside of the game. But if the coach is also the tactician, then his duties get expanded to all of the already well-known duties of an IGL. In any case, coaches should be running practices and even overseeing the problems with the strategies that an IGL is calling. I like a coach as a method of quality control. He should also be writing these things down and sending them to his IGL. But basically, a coach has to act as the curator of a team's training, making sure people are working on their weaknesses as a team. Okay, what's been a problem for us, right? CT side holds on, let's say cobble. Okay, let's go find a scrim and, let's go take our drop players and make sure they can hold drop rushes. They can hold drop executes. Okay, now let's drill A and see if a player can hold holding A against his peers and stopping an A rush. Okay, and see if people can rotate appropriately to that. Okay, now let's take what we did in those drills, go find a scrim and scrim with what we did in those drills and apply those ideas, those concepts, our natural reactions, what we think our protocol should be. Okay, now, after that, as a coach, you can write down your notes about what's going on, and we can adjust some other errors that I'm seeing. This is the concept of a coach, as far as I'm concerned. I don't think the IGL moved out to OGL is ready at the moment fully, at least not in North America. I honestly don't think there are people who are qualified enough to really give that power. I think I could coach and I could call. It wouldn't be the greatest calls in the world, but I think it actually would be pretty sufficient. I could call from outside of the game. A coach has to be able to diagnose why something isn't working, communicate effectively to his players as to what to try instead, and try to guide them into being more successful players. One of the more, I think, immediate needs for a coach is being able to control all of the personalities on a squad, making sure everybody has the same vision, making sure everybody has a comfortable mindset, is behaviorally considerate of his teammates, isn't getting tilted. If a coach can act as a grounding unit for his players, make sure his players are playing to the best of their ability, then a coach, in my estimation, along with everything else that I've said, has succeeded.